Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Helios Horizons, and this is episode 5. And today we're going to be talking with the one and only Sever, and we'll be talking about unlocking the value of validators in Phase 4. I'm really excited about this one. There's a lot to talk about. We've been talking in the background, preparing for this, and I'm really looking forward to explaining Phase 4 and talking about what kind of value can be unlocked through validator providers and what we can do for the ecosystem as both delegators and validators. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Sever, who will give a bit of his background in case you don't already know, and we'll move forward from there. Take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. I will not bore you too much with my how I started in Web3, but I do have a story that I think I haven't told yet. I promised to Kevin that I would tell it. He doesn't know it either. So I got into crypto in around 2017, and this was the ecomania, so to speak. So I invested a lot of my savings into ICOs, and I think this story I told that I made like from $50,000, like around $3 million in tokens in the peak of the 2018 bull market. And of course, instead of selling, I started this online influencer thing where I would review ICOs and share my brilliance with other people, because if I invested and made money, it was because I was a genius, not because there was a bull market. Long after, of course, those $3 million quickly went to nearly zero, which sent me down a spiral of depression. And anyway, it was pretty bad. But eventually I kept at the Web3 thing, and I got noticed by Elrond. So I started working with Elrond in 2019. And one of the first things that I was assigned to do with Elrond in 2019 was to run the Battle of Nodes competition. So for people new here who don't know what Battle of Nodes is, basically in 2019, this was pre-mainnet. So the Elrond, what it was called at the time, mainnet was not launched. It launched actually in July 2020. And before that, we had a public competition. It was called Battle of Nodes. And basically, people would run validator node software in a public testnet and just test and find bugs. And this is how I met a lot of the cool people that I stayed friends with from the validator community. And this is also how I met Kevin. And I was reviewing our conversation, and I don't know if you remember it. I don't know if you remember it, Kevin, but I think it was I think it was early when the pandemic started, and we had that crash. I think Bitcoin went to 4,500, and then ERD dropped to some crazy low amount. And I remember, and this is the story that I never told you, Kevin. I remember that you told me like the next day, like, yeah, it's like interesting. Some orders that I had set like really low got executed. So I kind of got, got more interested into Elrond and so on. And you mentioned like the price that you bought. And what I never told you is that because I was so panicked, and because I was completely out of money, and because everything was crashing, I woke up at 4 a.m. Just I couldn't sleep, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I think it was like the worst of the crash. And I logged on to Binance and I sold all the ERD that I had there. It was like 3 million or something ERDs, was more than a validator. And I took the price, like just immediately dump everything out of complete desperation. And I think I took the price to the point where your orders executed. And I looked now, I tried to find the transaction into the Binance history, but it doesn't hold the transaction for so far back, because I wanted to make it into an NFT for you. I don't know whether or not my desperation turned into made your orders execute, and this kind of like got you.
That makes me feel kind of bad.
No, really. No, it's a really good story, man. It was, of course, I've been an idiot, obviously. It's just a word of advice to everyone out there. If they think I'm wise, and just because they see me trying to explain everything, I'm not. I'm a bigger idiot than everyone here. And this was just a story for an example. But I think, all the bad things, I think got turned into good, because whether or not this particular price movement got your orders to execute and then got you a bit more interested in ERD or not. But anyway, here I am. Here we are, and this is the story that I wanted to share with everyone, just in case you guys want to. If any of us are here for the price component, which I think is important for everyone else, and everyone is thinking that there are some wise people out there, maybe for whatever reason you're thinking I'm one of them. I'm not. I just wanted to share this story.
That's
Anyway,
funny. So I was always interested in ERD, right? Like, in fairness, and then I think the thing there is just, expect the worst is kind of what I'd say the moral of the story is on my side. Expect the worst, plan for the worst, and who knows, you might have someone sell into you who and that's crazy. That's gonna keep me up tonight.
No, definitely not. I'm saying this as a funny story to be told years later. Obviously, I was too ashamed to tell it to you the next day when you say like, oh, like, some idiot people, like, why would anyone sell at these prices? Like biting my fingernails. Oh, God damn it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
so moving on.
Yeah, moving on. So just maybe, Kevin, we put in a document just a brief history of like the staking phases. Is it worth going through them? I think it's just fine.
I think we can just touch on them really quickly and just kind of say where we've been, where we're going. It doesn't have to be a major conversation, right? And like I can start just quickly. Like the original staking was on New Year's Eve, 2019, I believe. and I was driving back as fast as I could to a computer because it was released in stages. And I remember I made the first stage and I was all proud that I made it. And now, we're here at staking phase 4, right? And so it's just been a pretty wild journey. And everything in between, right? Like the 2019, we did a 251 TPS test, right? And then there's the pre-launch of the network in July 2020. And then, we work our way into where we are now with phase 3.5, and with phase 4.0 on the horizons, which maybe we want to get into now.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy. Everyone right now running validators, and especially all of us, delegating, we take the ease of delegation with Xportal and from the web wallet. It's just everything is so nice and elegant, and it's so easy to choose one of the many providers and so on. But it has been quite the journey, and it was not always like that. And it was immense progress. Sorry, from when the project got started and from the network got started. But here we are, we're taking phase 4, which is, I don't think this is the last stage, by the way, because we still don't have slashing, which I think this will be the last phase. But I think staking phase 4 is perhaps one of the most important steps towards democratizing and further expanding, like who gets to have a say basically in running the network. Because in the beginning, it was a limited number of validators. I think it was 2,169. It was this crazy amount of validators, just because there's also a story here. There's also a story here because it was supposed to be, I think, 1,600, but then there was a decision to create another shard. So there were more validators, and because of the EGLD economics, it was just this 2,169 number was just completely unexpected, but it was resulted out of some calculations. And then it was extended to 3,200 validators, which was already larger. And then there was the validator queue, so people could just wait in queue to join whenever nodes left. But still, this did not solve one of the. It was not a problem. It was more like a feature. Obviously, a lot of people took the leap of faith and took the opportunity to basically take a risk on what was then a unknown network and to build a large validator base. And obviously they contributed a lot to the network, but over time also, I think what we see now, for those of us looking into like the Explorer and the validator section, there are these like big providers with hundreds of servers, and basically they're there to stay. They're very important, and they brought a lot of contributions to the network on one hand, but on the other hand, the dynamics of the network are pretty low, and perhaps new players trying to make a move on MultiversX technology are perhaps discouraged to do so because of this lack of dynamics. And this is why this is finally bringing us to staking phase 4.
Yeah. So
Because this is super dynamic now.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy dynamic where it is. But like, let's explain phase 4.0 like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, so
Okay.
I'm your nephew, and you're going to explain it to me.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. All right. I think we're going to need a few concepts beyond that. I have a 5-year-old son, and I know exactly the level of conversation that you need to have with a 5-year-old kid, and this is too hard to explain. But let's just assume.
Of course, it's I'm being dramatic, obviously.
Yeah. Let's just assume some things here. So, just the status quo. So, like how things are right now, we have 3,200 validator nodes that are, let's say, active or earning rewards. Each validator node has to stake 2,500 EGLD, and that's the minimum, right? And if they're in, and if they have 2,500 EGLD, basically they can stay in for as long as they want. Also, people can stake additional e-gold on top of the base stake of 2,500. This additional stake is called top-up stake. And basically the APR that you're earning from the base stake is a bit higher than what you earn from the top-up stake. So there's this also incentive somehow for some validators to keep their validators in with no top-up whatsoever, so they earn as high an APR as possible. And what changes now in staking phase 4, instead of this number of 3,200 validators being fixed on a first come, first serve basis, as it is right now, this will change, right? So like the validators nodes will be basically ranked by amount of e-gold staked per node. So like there will be a sum of base and top up. And basically the first 3,200 nodes, I'm not sure if this figure is correct. I think it was 1,600. Now I have in second thoughts looking at the numbers. Maybe you know better than me, Kevin.
It's 3,200 that enter, right? But then 1,600 that are active, correct?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So basically the first 3,200 by amount of e-gold staked from largest to lowest are in, and then the rest are out. And there's a dynamic auction process which is called, which basically means that if some of the validators which are out, or new validators, you start a new validator node, and let's say the amount of e-gold stake per node to be in is at around, 4,000 e-gold, then you come with 4,500 e-gold, then basically your node gets in, and the lowest from the rank are kicked out. And this is really very important, because basically anyone can come with like a more, let's say, aggressive EGLD stake to move in. And I will also mention here the maximum of 50 nodes per provider. So basically each infrastructure provider, as you see them branded there in the validator staking providers page, they can have maximum 50 nodes per provider, which is a decrease from right now, where basically there are no limits, and there are a few providers with more than 50 nodes here. And now the challenge here will be for providers to they are limited to this 50 nodes per 50 nodes per provider. So basically, for providers to be able to attract delegations, they will have to compete a bit more with one another, and I'm sure this will create some healthy competition. Again, nothing against the people who are here from the beginning, but obviously the change makes it so that the staking providers have to be more dynamic in their offering. They have to engage their communities more, and they have to kind of compete for attention and for the EGLD getting delegated to them if they want to be a part of the active validator network can earn rewards and distribute them to the delegators and take their fees from this.
Yeah,
And
what's interesting is that anyone can come in, and anyone's going to be able to come in now, and with say like 100,000 e-gold, and have a node within an epoch, if they bid correctly, right? The bidding system in the battle of what do we call that? Battle of Stakes, I think, for Phase 4.
Yeah, it was Battle of Stakes. Yeah.
Battle of Stakes, yeah. And so what was interesting was, and that was every 2 hours. There were 2 hour epochs, so that was a bit of a challenge. But what would happen is when your node would exit active service, you'd then go down into this queue, right? And the thing is the team then every now and then would just add a ton of e-gold, and all of a sudden your node won't make it in because it doesn't enter the next 320. It was about 320 nodes every epoch. But what's interesting is, at any point in time, a big player or anyone can come in and bring that bid price up, which as you said, is gonna force providers to work together or to find ways to have their delegators to see benefit in what they're doing, and especially with what are you doing with the commissions, right? And we'll get into that a bit further in a minute. But what this does is it kind of improves decentralization as well, right? So if you want to maybe touch on the decentralization side of Phase 4 and why having this open market and every epoch a queue, an auction, is going to help increase the decentralization nature of the ecosystem.
Right. So first of all, I think, like you said, new players perhaps waiting on the sidelines, looking at the MultiversX technology as interesting, but perhaps they don't see enough room to move in a way that allows them to invest and build in a way that is synergistic. So basically, they don't just invest the money into building projects that drives equal value, but then there are others who extract value out of it. So now it would make sense for people to muscle in, as it were, and to become established and to start working for the ecosystem. I think this is a really, really good thing. I think also this will bring also a better distribution for rewards. So imagine right now, if you look in the list of validators and the ones you see, like the ones who are capped with the amount of e-gold that they receive to keep the APR up. Obviously, some of them, when you drill down inside, you don't see that the amount of top up is as large per validator as it could be, which kind of like limits the amount of e-gold to be staked, or at least kind of like makes the distribution of the APR from the rewards kind of like uneven. So I think this will be a great dynamic also for delegators. Basically, the average APR for delegators will increase, especially for newer ones. I'm not sure how many of you are using some of the tools, for example, from Dr. Delphi, to snipe some delegation spot with one of the providers that offers higher APR and so on. This is probably a challenge, but this is obviously going to go away in this new format, which I like. And yeah, I think also this will a bit kind of like, let's say, change the balance of power. Like, again, nothing against the established validators with a large amount of nodes who have been let's say a classical presence in the ecosystem, but giving the opportunity for new people with new ideas and new tools and new mindsets to come in and kind of like challenge a bit the status quo can be a really, really good thing. So I'm really excited about that stuff.
For sure. And over time, one of the ideas I kind of had is I was talking to someone about it the other day. I can't really remember, but imagine the amount of just solo stakers out there who might have 10, 20,000 e-gold, or even just the bare minimum, right? If we set up, like these one-click, these like, well, we do have the one-click deployment with tenant, right? So if we can start educating just the solo staking providers or solo delegators and empower them to set up their own, 2-3 node provider for themselves, then all of a sudden, while the e-gold might be leave, and like I'm saying this as a staking provider, while it might leave my provider, it will also go into a very decentralized manner, and they won't have to wait 4 months, even more, to get that node active and earn their own APR and take control of validating for themselves. So there's also a very good point there where current delegators who might have the tech ability or do have the tech ability but never really bothered to go down that road will now, or didn't want to wait for the queue, now will be able to do so. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see the distribution of e-gold after this goes over the couple of months, and whether people actually unstake to start their own, or whether people unstake to go to providers that provide better value, or we see programs that actually increase the level of staking, which is obviously what I would like to see the most, is see programs developed by fellow validators and validator providers, or even delegators that incentivize staking with maybe smaller providers, or providers that have that are adding real value to the network, right? And I think that's kind of where we're headed next with this conversation.
I like it, and I would like to dwell a bit on that idea, because I know that a lot of the projects, existing projects in MultiversX right now, perhaps even like NFT collections or meme coins or whatever, they gather EGLD from selling their tokens or their NFTs, and the ones who are really careful and cautious about managing their funds, they stake it, and they unstake periodically only the amounts that they need to manage themselves, and then the rest they keep staked. And with your idea, I think it would make a lot of sense for them to basically remove the stake, start their own staking provider, muscle in, as I was mentioning earlier, and then leverage their communities to attract delegations towards them, and maybe use some sort of like incentives, like NFT distribution or token distribution or whatever is there. So yeah, I think this is going to have a lot of change in the dynamics in the ecosystem. And I think a lot of the projects that are quote unquote just communities will have the opportunity to dabble also on the technical side of things. And as you said, with one-click deployment, and how easy things are and how usable the tools are, is just incredible. How easy it is to deploy a validator node, and
cheap,
like
right?
said,
So like let's talk about multi-key, right? What a lot of people seem to forget. Like there's so much education out there that we could be talking about that kind of gets missed. And just before we get in that, people kind of forget that the background and the whole infrastructure is built on the validators, right? And we were the beginning of the chain, and we'll be there at the beginning, and we'll be there till ever or whatever, right? Until AI comes in and takes over, right? I mean, like it's Skynet type stuff, right? Like apocalyptic stuff. But yeah, no, like the thing is there's always leaps and bounds happening there, and most recently we also had multi-key, which didn't. I don't know if that many people know what multi-key is, and maybe you want to explain to people what multi-key is and why multi-key has not only slashed our prices, it's made it, or slashed our overhead costs. It's actually made things extremely easier to run.
Yeah. So I will tell you what multi-key is, and I have also a story about multi-key, if you believe it or not. Anyway, so like multi-key basically is this. I will start with like how validators used to run before. So basically, if you look at like what the requirements for running a validator node, you need I think it was 4 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, and like 200 gigabytes of storage space for one validator node. And what the validator node does with all this compute and storage, basically, it runs a validator node. It listens to network traffic. It runs the calculations so that everything it sees in the networks, it compares with what the conclusions it reaches on by itself, and signs like, yes, this, I agree with this. This is basically what's happening at the validator node level. And this multi-key setup basically allows people like a staking provider with 4 or more nodes to basically bundle those more nodes onto only 4. And why 4? Because you have the meta chains, shard 0, shard 1, and shard 2. So basically we have 4 shards. So with a node in each shard, and with the, now it's anyway too technical, but with the validator key assigned dynamically to one shard or the other after each epoch, basically you don't care. You deploy as many keys as you want on those 4 nodes. You can have, like, I have nodes, I have servers with 22 keys running on 4 validator nodes on one server, right? So because it's a consolidation, basically, if you have 5 keys allocated to shard 1, you don't need 5 servers running those whole computation to sign 5 times for each of the keys. You could basically do it with just one server signing 5 times. One server doing the calculations once and signing 5 times for each of the keys. So this is basically what the multi-key infrastructure provides, and this is a really, really cool thing because for me personally, I told you Waterworks has 22 validator nodes, and I used to run, I think it was like 12 servers with like 4 or 5 nodes distributed on each server, and there were redundancies between them and so on. So basically I was able to collapse my infrastructure to just 2 huge servers, but it's only 2 of them, and I run 2 because one is basically main, and the one with redundancy, there's also built-in redundancy. So like one of the servers completely dies from a data center or whatever, the other one just immediately picks up, and because they're in 2 different continents, if I have one in America and I have one in Europe, basically it's pretty easy, and it's pretty low maintenance, and you can set 3 or you can set 4 up, whatever, if you want, for additional redundancy. But the cost of running servers has dramatically decreased.
Our cost in Helios went down by 67%.
Yeah,
maybe even more than that. Like we had, it's crazy. It's crazy how much. Like I had to actually call our provider, and I decommissioned a whole data center, like a whole cert, like, because the way we work on a distributed cloud system with bare metal servers attached to them, but like we had 8 different data centers around the world, and I was able to actually bring that down quite significantly, and had to renegotiate because of how much money I was going to save. It caught, like, the release fee still didn't amount to how much money I was saving because of multi-key. So now we went from, let's say, just hypothetically running at 10,000 a month cost for servers to under 1,000.
Yep.
Like it's crazy, but like the overall was, I think, something like 78% or something like that, because there's other costs involved, like with me and Mark, obviously. But in terms of just the servers, yeah, it was probably below almost a 90% improvement on just the pure cost of servers. If you add mine and Mark's costs, then that's where the rest comes into play. But yeah, it's crazy. So with that said, now it's a really lucrative business. It always was, right? I mean, the bear market was a bit rough, but at the same time, now with this improvement with multi-key, most validators should be switched over by now, are now also doing quite well, and it's kind of like, what will we do to do something back to the ecosystem, right? How can we use that to our advantage, and how can we, as validators and delegators, step away from the narrative that's out there and do something of our own, right? It's great following the narrative of the team, and they're doing great jobs, but why can't we create our own narrative now as well, right? And start building something around what we have, because we are, in sense, our own little corporation or mafia, if you will, right? That has the ability to do quite a bit within the ecosystem if we all work together, and provide value. So that's where kind of the conversation, I think, is going to go next. I don't know if you want to tag on to that.
Oh, and boy, do I,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really interesting how things have evolved over the years. I just opened the Explorer and I was looking at the MultiversX community delegation, which I think it was called Elrond Foundational Nodes, which were basically the bulk of the network. And right now they're like a minority. What is like 500 nodes? So like, just if MultiversX, the team, shut down all its servers, we wouldn't feel it, basically, right? But if every staking provider shut down all their servers, the network would basically not run anymore. And this is a great power. And it's like my favorite wise man, Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think it's wise to reflect on that, especially in the context, like you mentioned, Kevin, like this narrative with like the team. Why isn't the team doing something or something else, or the team said this or the team said that? It's just, I think it's time to acknowledge that this network is no longer run by the team. It's run by especially the validator network supporting the servers, but also the delegators, trusting the staking providers with their hard-earned money, which is converted to Eagle, then put to work for the network of the security of the network. And I think it's good. Really, I think it's an important moment to realize this, to realize how far decentralization of MultiversX has gone and how much power now sits with the staking providers and how much more power now will come to the staking providers via staking phase 4 with a much more diverse and dynamic landscape of infrastructure providers, right? I think it's great also that the multi-key change came right now, even though it could have come a lot earlier. And I will still tell the story later, but I think it's important that we have now staking phase 4 coming. We have multi-key. We have really everything in place for the staking providers to take a more critical and active role in running the network and building on the network. And I was looking here at some figures. So for those of you who are maybe not aware of like the MultiversX economics paper, you know that EGLD has a maximum supply of 31,400,000. That's all the
It's pi. It's
pi.
pi,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah,
all the
pi.
digits of pi that I
It's
remember,
pi. Yeah,
314.
yeah, yeah.
But it's pi. There are pi equaled in pi times 10 to the 7 or whatever, equaled in ever in existence, and they are gradually released in a decreasing amount each year. And starting with July this year, we will be entering year 5, and in year 5, 1,255,000 eagle will be released to be captured as by validators as rewards. And if you think about the average validator fee, which is around 10% right now, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but it's on average 10%. That's 125,000 eagle going to the staking provider, which at $40 per eagle is $5 million. At $200 per eagle is $25 million. So imagine if we took like maybe 10% of that, or 20%, or 50% of that, and we put it towards we as staking providers, we basically take 20% or whatever the amount of the fees we get, and we pull them together to start some projects, or at least we could start some projects individually, and like kind of like everyone says, I'm working on this or on that, and I'm funding this with this amount of money. So basically, not only would the staking providers, who are the most involved, and I would argue also some of the more technically savvy from the community, right? I would argue that a staking provider is more technically savvy than, let's say, an NFT or a meme token community owner, which is not to say that they're not important, but I would say that a staking provider also has the knowledge and the tools and the capabilities to go and build something else, right? So what if we all set aside some of the fees that we collect moving forward, and then fund various things that we could do? And there's like a number of things, of course, we could do, and everyone could list what they're doing. So like there are some ideas here, like I don't know, we could do marketing, we could like sponsor influencers or ads or news sites or blogs or whatever. We could launch new products like launch pads or explorers. We already have a few, but maybe reviving some. I love, like, for example, Dr. Delphi's EGLD scan. Tools, whatever tools and protocols we're missing, exchanges, right? And I'm not saying new dexes, but also supporting existing projects to reach maybe on centralized exchanges, to sponsor them with listings or whatever, to set up VCs for investing in projects, and all these things that could be done, right? And I think,
and what's most important
yeah.
is that this could be DAO led, right? And where the community can vote on what project we think, or what. I mean, the marketing things actually are a really interesting one. And I just kind of just realized the implications of that, and yeah, paying for the influencer spaces, or you know. Combining with community initiatives, or helping to fund community initiatives, the validator space, and yeah, it could be 10%, it could be 50%, it could be 5%, it could be whatever. But the thing is, like in Helios, for example, there was a period of time where I was putting away 5% of all commissions into a reserves wallet, right? And that reserves wallet was then distributed to anyone who staked for X amount of time. But who's to say I don't take that 5% and start putting it in now to a smart contract, multi-key, multi-sig that is backed by a DAO, and we decide where we're going to fund the money. Like no coins in return, no ICO stuff or stuff like that. It's just, hey, we have some grants as validators, and here's all the validators that contributed. Now you as a community, and this is where the vote comes in, you as a community get to vote on which ones we think we should give to first. And obviously you can't really open the gates there and just let in any old projects, right? So there is going to have to be some form of system to prevent, a project that, isn't really a project, right? But I think it's a brilliant idea, and NFT projects and projects out there that are earning income can add to this as well, right? It doesn't have to be a validator registry per se, right? But yeah, it's an incredible idea that I think when phase 4 comes around, us as validators and maybe us as a community even should maybe come together and talk about this more actively, and set up basically a registry is kind of what we're talking about, where there's a smart contract with a certain amount of funds that get maybe put in monthly or quarterly, and then we look at what people are working on. Maybe there's gaps, maybe there's an influencer we'd really like, or maybe there's something, who knows, we might want to put a giant billboard somewhere, you know what I mean? There's so many use cases to that, or even just loyalty programs, the building of a loyalty program for the overall staking providers who participate. There's a ton of use cases there. So that's a really good idea, and I'm going to have to credit that one to Sever. Obviously, you heard it here first, people. So yeah, I'll let you continue on that. You just got me super excited.
I'm not even going to say that this was my idea. I heard it from, I think it was Jose who told me this in Madrid, that he was speaking to some friends or people in the. I don't want to assume that Jose has friends in the Solana ecosystem. Obviously, just people. So he was speaking to some people in the Solana ecosystem, and this is basically what the validators did after the whole debacle when. The main promoter of Solana, which was Sam Bankman-Fried, got into trouble and eventually into jail, and everything was going to shit. And basically, the validators on Solana just came together and was like, "Hey guys, we have to do something." And they came up with a lot of cool ideas, and they funded a lot of the things. So it's I definitely will not take credit for this idea, but I think it's a really good idea. And I think, like you mentioned, Kevin, there are so many cool things, and it just popped open a can of like potential ideas here, and I think we definitely need to get the discussion going, the ideas flowing, and to see which way we can push this. I like I like obviously that you mentioned also the NFTs and other projects that can contribute to this, and I encourage everyone who can contribute to do it, because I think it's time that we move together as a unit and as a team to push things further than the combined efforts of what are a stellar team of people, but are still only a handful of people, right? The team can do, right? I mean, we can't expect to grow to be in the top 10 or the top 5 if we only rely on a handful of people sitting together huddled in the office, and we as a community don't move to do anything. And I think this is a great call to action for all of us to get our hands down and dirty and get to work. And I think we can do like a really, really great amount of things. We have the tech.
Exactly.
We just need to put it out there for people to see it and to use it. And
we have our own narrative. Like the whole point is that we have our own narrative, and we love the team. The team is great, but we have our own narrative, and we can go out there and hammer that home. The whole point of decentralization is not having to rely on one single point of failure, right? And so, not that the team is a failure, but they're just another big branch in or the root of our tree, but we're able to offshoot as many branches as we want, and go off and do what we do what we want and do that. I mean, you take a look at Ethereum, even like you mentioned Solana, but Ethereum, people just ran with it and did their own thing, created their own ecosystem. Uniswap, for example, there's all these people who just built on top of it without permission or without looking to the Ethereum team for guidance. They just roll with it. And yes, tons of issues with Ethereum, and all that stuff. But the point is that, the tech is by far the best on MultiversX. We know this. It's scalable. The security is unmatched with Guardians. And we're sitting there as a community fighting amongst each other and trying to all get the same piece of the pie, when really we can all move forward and create our own narratives. And I think that's what we're talking about with here, starting with maybe the validators, or even with NFT projects or other projects out there who might start creating their own nodes and then funneling some of those commissions towards community projects or to other tools that are needed, or other marketing that might be needed. It's such a powerful thing to kind of break away and do your own thing. And the thing is just because you're doing your own thing doesn't mean you're not going to get the recognition from the team, right? There's this whole thing where everyone's looking for validation, which is no pun intended, but everyone's looking for validation and a nice pat on the back from dad. You did well, son. Well, guess what? That doesn't exist in business. That your competitors aren't going to tap you on your back. The technology you use, Microsoft's not going to come say, "Oh, hey, good job setting up Outlook for this, this company," right? Like if that was your business, they're not going to pat you on the back, but you can go out and set up Outlook for an entire company if you really wanted to do that, which is a mistake, by the way. But yeah, so that's kind of the point. Like, let's make our own voice. Go out there, make your own voice. And the team will be there to support it if at times. But you got to remember, they're out there doing their thing and building something that's absolutely incredible that we can now leverage. We don't have to be looking to them for everything. So yeah, that's pretty well the end of my rant.
Yeah, I chuckled. Go ahead. I chuckled a few times. I was on mute, but the whole Outlook thing was hilarious. I also had a funny image in mind, funny / sad, with like the team, with like Benjamin and everyone, doing everything and pushing everything, like creating a protocol where there was none, starting a network where there was none, starting an exchange where there was none, a launchpad where there was none. It's like I have this vision of like a tired runner, like maybe Benjamin, trying to run and pass the baton, and everyone's like, no, go ahead, you're doing fine, just keep running, you're the best. It's like how far can we expect, one team, again, as stellar as they are, to go on their own, right? And so definitely the time to move here. And also I would comment on this expectation that you mentioned, this validation from the teams. Like, oh, I've seen it like literally nowhere in no ecosystem. I don't think anyone was waiting for Vitalik to give his blessing for whatever was being built there. Like you said, people just ran with it, and I see this as like a sort of like a thing, you know. Like I have people coming to me, like the validators. I was like, can Benjamin maybe tweet about our project and so on, to kind of like make it official that what we're doing is endorsed by the team. Is like, no, we don't need that. We definitely don't need this. And it's maybe even the wrong thing to be looking for. And I couldn't agree more that we definitely have to carve our own paths and like independent and whatever. If Benjamin and the team will be there and cheering us from the sidelines, good for us, but it's definitely not needed, right? And yeah, it's
Exactly.
but it's exciting. I think we maybe are able to open not a can of worms, but there's some sort of expression here to like
Pandora's
start
box or
something.
something.
Nah, not even a Pandora's box, yeah, because all the bad things came out
Oh
there.
yeah,
I
right.
don't know, to open something similar to the Pandora box, but everything coming out of there is like great ideas and a lot of great initiatives and
Rainbows and unicorns.
people, people all of a sudden who were sitting on the sidelines, maybe even passively ignoring, like, I'm not even checking prices anymore, it's like maybe holding but not getting involved, which I suspect this is the bulk, with like even the more active ones on Twitter, like angry and posting all mean comments and so on. It's just such wasted energy for what could be a great thing. So I'm really excited about bringing this idea in, not my idea, but just bringing this idea as it is into this space. And thank you for hosting me, because I got really excited. I don't know if you can tell by my voice.
Well, I think a
So,
lot of people. I think a lot of people have been excited to hear your voice and the comeback kid. But yeah, no, I'm really happy to have you. And usually now, we have about 10 minutes left. And I do have there, what can delegators do in order to help with this initiative. But I also would like to open up any questions that anyone might have. You can leave questions in the comments on the pin tweet, or you can request the mic, come up and ask a question if you want. But in the meantime, yeah, what in your opinion can delegators do? And I think we touched on it a lot, but let's just talk about delegators for a minute.
Yeah. So if this idea is to work with staking providers taking a more active role and funneling a portion of the capture fees towards building projects and so on, I would assume like maybe each staking provider creates a list of projects or thing that they are doing. It's like, hey, look, this is what we are funneling 20% of our fees to this, and this amounts to around this amount of budget per month, and this is how we will spend it to either build something or to advertise or to create some value for the network. And basically what the delegators can do, especially the more active ones, is to see exactly what provider is building what or doing what with their fees, and basically kind of like vote on the development of the ecosystem with their delegation, right? So basically you select your staking provider, not necessarily based on APR, which I think is important, but I think, for those eagle holders with a builder's mindset, is it important if it's 7.1 or 7.3 if on the long term you're giving up 0.2% APR for something that may result in a 2x for the eagle price, and maybe that's an extreme example, but you know what I mean, right? It's like, can we come together also as delegators and to kind of like vote with our money and to empower those staking providers who are willing to forgo a part of their fees and to build something with it. And basically, depending on what everyone is building, I, as a delegator, can decide, okay, I like those guys, they're building a new launchpad, and those guys are paying influencers to chill, and this guy is building another DEX. I think we have enough of those or whatever, right? And maybe this will also bring people more let's say, in touch with what the network is doing, and not having maybe converting people from passive e-gold holders to more informed and active contributors, right? They don't really have to do anything. They don't really have to um, uh, be developers or marketers or whatever, even though that's welcome. But at least they can, put their money to work with a staking provider that is building something that resonates with what they think that should be done for the network, for it to increase in adoption and ultimately in value.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, let's activate some of these dormant delegators. There's, obviously bear markets, people flush out, and with the prophesized bull coming, which is, I mean, the bull market's always coming, right? It's and just like the bear market will always be coming as well, right? But when the bull comes, obviously there's going to be a new influx of people, and dormant delegators are going to wake up. And right now is the time to have those tools in place to make sure that their delegations are used properly, or they create their own small little providers, thus decentralizing the network even further, right? I do believe we have a question. I think Lucas, the chess master, has a question. So if we can unmute him and let him fire away, that'd be great.
I can do that. I can try. Thank you so much for the space. Very interesting. I wanted to ask both of you. You spoke a little bit about this sort of ethos on ETH and Solana maybe versus the one on MultiversX at the moment. What do you think are some ways of actually also reaching across chains and getting some people from those ecosystems in through collaborations, through different sort of initiatives, and also how can staking providers sort of lead that charge to either of you or both?
Okay, you go first.
Okay. Look, maybe this is going to sound like completely not technical and not wise and not intelligent, but I think people are not on other chains because they are on a chain in particular. I think people are in crypto for a number of reasons, and I think the most important one is to make money. So I think when we can funnel some funds towards creating opportunity for people to make money, we can get their attention, right? And there are a number of ways for doing that, and I like what, for example, I don't know if you guys followed like MultiversX with launching meme coins as the meme coin season was in full swing. But anyway, there's always a new meta, there's always a new narrative, there's always some clever quote unquote way for people that find to have a money hack and whatever. And the only thing that's, we have all the technology to support all of that, but the only thing that's lacking is basically attention on those products. So I would just say advertising and influencers in various crypto communities speaking about products and opportunities to make money on MultiversX, because I think there are a lot. I'm not into DeFi so much, but even if I'm not into DeFi, I know that Hatom is doing a lot of great things. JewelSwap is doing a lot of great things. AshSwap is doing a lot of great things. I think even X Exchange version 3 with Max is doing something interesting after a long time. And I'm not going to be critical here, but I know that it's a welcome comeback. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for people to make money. It's just nobody knows all of them, and nobody knows how easy it is to get into it. And I think it's just advertising to those communities, the degens will come. And once the degens will come, the numbers will grow, because what's important for a chain is there are basically one metric, I would say, but maybe two: number of transactions and number of accounts. And if we increase those, those numbers will speak by themselves, and then builders will, pay more attention to MultiversX for choosing for a place to build and so on. I think it will all grow organically from that. So again, it's like probably it's not the most honorable or the most visionary answer, but it is what it is. And I think,
It's honest.
if it worked for Solana, which is literally not a good chain to say the least from a technical point of view, but it did work because there were a lot of people who supported various products there that allowed for money to quickly change hands. Some people won, most people lost. That's the nature of the game, but at least a lot of people had a chance to do that, and that's basically how you
it's a
get
very
started.
honest.
It is what it is.
It's a very honest answer, and you're right. Everyone is in it for money, right? Not well, most people, are. It's definitely a money driven system, right? And I mean, when Exchange first launched, we saw what happened, right? We did get that influx, and we went up to 585, and that was strictly money based and returns based, and it was great, and it brought a lot of people in. Now, I hate to admit that. So it's funny that you were so honest about it, but for me, I still like to think there's some tricks missed with adoption, and actual adoption of just blockchain tech that can also drive new users, and things like that. And I've talked about this on a few podcasts already, but one of my ideas, and I call it the Snoop Dogg Willie Nelson concert. And it's obviously I'm not going to throw a Snoop Dogg Willie Nelson concert, but imagine I did, right? And imagine I made it so that tickets can only be downloaded, can only be bought through an NFT ticketing proposal, such as X Portal, right? And when you release that, let's say we have 20,000 tickets, right? These tickets, people will have to download X Portal in order to get a ticket, right? So you do a lot of education prior. Everyone's like, oh, what's X Portal? What did it do? What's this? What's that? How does it work? Maybe we have our own little NFT ticketing DApp. Who knows, right? And you keep pushing that. And yeah, it's going to be a big cost to the person who runs it. But then now here's where the trick comes in, and I actually learned this from OCS, is which is the On-Chain Smokers, which is Lucas's one of Lucas's things in an event I went to, is when you cross the line into that festival now, or that concert, now all of a sudden you can do push notifications that give people rewards on X Portal. Oh, hey, guess what? Did you know you just won this? Or, oh, you get to meet Snoop Dogg. Oh, no way, and this gets pushed to the person's phone. And then not only that, you can work with vendors then to allow them to only accept X Portal. And then they can provide various discounts to people. Oh, are you going to use Eagle to pay? Are you going to use USDC to pay? Hopefully, then there's the maybe you accept the euro on the card as well. But what you're doing is you're creating some Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson lovers, for example, to actually download this app. And then while they're in there, they're actually seeing the power of this. They don't have to give their email address. They don't have to do any of that stuff. All they have to do is go in, load some money up, buy their ticket, scan in, and then they have also in their hand their ticket for the raffles. They have the ability to get 15% off a burrito, which I love burritos, by the way, and that sort of thing, right? So it's a crazy idea, but and obviously it's very grandiose. But these are the kind of things that I actually think could really change things. If an event of that size, right? I know they've done festivals and all that stuff, but you still had to pay in fiat. So but an event of that size that was strictly X Portal based or crypto based or some wallet based, obviously X Portal would be my choice. If that were ran and were actually the benefits were shown, for example, here in the Netherlands, techno's massive, right? If you did a techno event and shown how much money the promoters have saved, how much money now the artists are making, how much less fees there were, how seamless it was, next thing you know, all these other techno providers are going to be like, we want to use NFT ticketing now through X Portal, and then boom, you got all these users, and some of those will convert to users of the traditional financial stuff. So yeah, that's my answer, Lucas. I hope that was good enough.
Yes, thank you. When
Snoop Dogg Willie Nelson.
I had to look up Willie Nelson online. Like, why would people come to see this guy for a chance to see him die live on stage? Or maybe I'm looking at the wrong guy. He's a 91-year-old
Oh, he's
guy.
super old. He's super old, but he's like, it's just the reason I use Willie Nelson is because a lot of old people will want to see him, right? And part of it is old people aren't on crypto, so I like I didn't really touch on that, but like getting people who wouldn't normally use crypto to use crypto, right?
They're a lost cause.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
We need to get young people, maybe with like games and kind of like my son is playing like Roblox a lot, but there's like there's I see these buying Robux, they're called. They're like cards everywhere. You can buy them online and so on. And all the app stores are taking like a 30% cut of every transaction there. So like crypto is just a natural disintermediator for this. But obviously, it's getting kicked off app stores. Products with crypto in them get kicked off app stores for particularly that reason. But whatever. I think you had a lot of great ideas, and maybe you can start small with them, to try to experiment, maybe not with Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg, but maybe like some sort of local event, and maybe part of the funds that get set up, as we spoke before, we can start collaborating with smaller venues and smaller events, and just get a feel of how that would work. Because I think, like you mentioned, there's like a lot of opportunity to run all of this in festival, or let's say independent economies, using blockchain and export also. Just one great idea, and I think we can come up with a lot of them.
Yeah,
But I still
and
think
like there's so many
shilling
angles,
to defense.
so many angles on it.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. If there's any more questions, we didn't get any more on the tweet, and there's no one else requesting, so I think we'll just wrap it up. So if there's anything you want to say before I say goodbyes, go ahead, Sever, and work away.
Nothing else except thank you so much. I think it was a great conversation to get things started in this spirit. Maybe the two of us can flesh out the details and propose it to let's start with the validator community first, and then see how we take it from there. I think it's great.
Yep.
I'm excited.
Yep. I agree. It's baby steps type thing, but it's definitely something that we need to explore a bit more for sure. Okay, so thank you for everyone for being here, and thank you most of all to Sever for coming and giving us some of his time here on Helios Horizons Ep.5, where we talked about the unlocking the value of validators, phase 4, and how I ended up being the beneficiary of Sever's panic sell, which is kind of funny. Which he only told me today. This happened years ago. But yeah, okay. So yeah, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you all for episode 6 next week. And yeah, let's get it. And remember, just do your part, keep your head up, stay positive, and we'll get there in the end. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All the best, guys. Bye.